listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good evening, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Friday, August the 2nd. I'm your host, Michael Leva, flying solo tonight, as we're going to break down everything that took place on the practice field Friday morning with the Miami Dolphins training camp practice. And there's a lot of information there, so we're going to get to it. But before we get to any of that, as always, today's show is brought to you by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? Don't worry. Visit caneswear.com to shop their inventory, easy for me to say, from the comfort of your own home. And yes, they ship internationally as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com. Also, a big shout out to everyone listening at FinHeaven.com, everyone listening at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page, run by Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please make sure you're a part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. And wherever you're listening, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Audible, Podchaser, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Take a second right now. Subscribe to the channel. We have shows each and every day of the week. We'll have shows all weekend for you. We'll have shows all next week. Joint practices with the Atlanta Falcons. That's going to be awesome. So you don't want to miss an episode. And so if you hit that subscribe button when a new show drops, you're notified on your smart device. Before I get into the practice, we have a little bit of breaking news here, a few minutes or so before I started recording. Saturday's Dolphins training camp practice was supposed to be a scrimmage at Hard Rock Stadium. Fans were going to be in attendance as well. The Miami Dolphins have canceled Saturday's scrimmage at Hard Rock Stadium. So if you're a fan in South Florida who maybe hasn't heard yet or was going to attend, don't go. There's no practice at Hard Rock Stadium. They had to cancel it due to the weather in the area. They got some nasty weather, some inclement weather, as they said. For those of you who might not have been paying attention to the news of late, South Florida has a big tropical storm, possible hurricane if it gets a little stronger and all that stuff. This is that time of year when these things happen down there. So because of the inclement weather, the Dolphins Saturday scrimmage at Hard Rock has been canceled. I don't know if they're still going to practice, maybe indoors in the facility on Saturday. Won't be open to the fans. But if they'll practice indoors and maybe some of the reporters on hand, maybe the reporters won't be on hand. I don't know. I don't know that, but I know the open practice to the fans at Hard Rock Stadium Saturday has been canceled. So if you had plans on going, please don't. You're just wasting your time driving there. All right, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter show here as there's no news with the Dolphins, which is good. No news is good news. No major injuries, nothing new to report with injuries, no signings. We just got practice notes. And today, I actually had little birdie in the stands watching practice for me, so I don't have to go off people for the newspapers and their reports. We got our own reports here today. So this might be a little bit of a shorter show, but let's go through the notes of what happened Friday morning on August 2nd at Miami Dolphins training camp practice. The orange jersey was worn by Tua, which is kind of ironic because Tua, for the past week, since last Friday when he had his first full practice and signed his contract for all that money, up until today has been awesome in practice. Like I've said, throwing BBs out there, throwing darts, pinpoint accuracy, tons of confidence, just owning the practice field. Well, today he probably had his worst practice of the season. Again, it's one practice. It's August 2nd. Who cares? But he wore the orange jersey because he practiced so well yesterday. And today he probably had his worst practice of this training camp. It happens. Overall, The defense outplayed the offense today in this practice. A good day for the defense. It was a sloppy practice with a lot of penalties. And there were penalties on both sides of the ball. With the offense, false starts and holdings. On defense, a ton of offsides and a couple pass interferences. So it was a sloppy practice, which again, they're 1 week in here. So that's kind of expected, but there's a lot to clean up clearly and a lot to work on in that regard. But overall, the defense had a great day. Now, no Jordan Brooks at practice today. Nothing to worry about. Kind of a rest day. Teron Armstead was dressed, but he was very limited in the work he did, which is not a shock. And probably at some point, I'll just stop reporting on this because we all know what's going on there. Probably the most promising news, and there is video footage of this on social media. So if you're on social media, go out there. You can find it yourself. I don't want to share it because I know some of the people get upset, which is just mind-blowing. Jaylen Phillips was off on the side doing work. Obviously, he can't practice. He's on the PUP list, but he can not dress, but put on a jersey top and just sort of do rehab work on the side. And there's video footage of him running not just fast, I would say very, very fast, and also doing a lot of lateral work. So coming off an Achilles, that's always the concern, is the football moves, lateral work. Can you get to full speed and, be who you were prior to injury? Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a coach. I'm not a trainer. I don't know how far along he is in his rehab, but from the video footage, you see him running in a straight line. You're like, okay, whatever. It's not like his leg was amputated. He can run or he can walk pretty well. Watching this gives you a little bit of hope that hopefully he'll be back on the field sooner rather than later. I still think end of September, but after watching this today, I'm like, well, maybe it's mid-September. Maybe it's early September. Who knows? So Jaylen Phillips looks like he's putting in a ton of work, and I'm not saying he's there because I don't know, but he looks really, really, really good in his rehab. So fingers crossed he has no setbacks, and he's back sooner rather than later, as I said. Okay, let's get to the practice. The Dolphins cornerbacks today overall throughout the whole practice had very snug coverage. So a good day for the Dolphins cornerbacks. Quentin Bell. I am officially the president of the Quentin Bell fan club. He had another awesome day on the practice field, and he continues to just take over and dominate these practices. So Quentin Bell, this is a guy you keep an eye on here once we get to the joint practices and the preseason games, because if that continues against, right now he's lining up against the same guys every day. So, it could be a case of, well, Miami's offensive line's so bad, of course he's dominating. I mean, anyone would dominate. So when he gets to Atlanta, or when he's practicing versus Atlanta late next week in the preseason game, if he continues to dominate versus those guys, we got ourselves a find here. So that's why I love to see a guy sort of come out of camp, sort of take over, be a force each and every day of the week. But we'll learn more late next week when he's lining up against other players. And if this continues, this Quentin Bell might turn out to be a steal for the Dolphins here, just to have on their roster when it's a total position of need, as we know, for the first half of the year. Jalen Ramsey forced a fumble on a run play by Raheem Mostert. And here's the interesting part. You hear that, you go, okay, so he forced a fumble against Mostert. Big deal. When he was lined up in the front seven. So remember, we've been hearing all off season, this isn't Vic Fangio. Anthony Weaver's going to use Jalen Ramsey as a chess piece. Would Vic Fangio ever line Jalen Ramsey up in the front seven? Absolutely not. But it sounds like, and it seems like from the people on hand watching, Ramsey's being moved around a lot, including into the front seven of the defense. And on this play, he put a hit on Mostert and caused a fumble. And by hit, it's always in quotes here. These are practice. We're not really going full out there. Tua wasn't bad on Friday, but probably his worst practice at his training camp, which I already said. He had a throw that went wide that Elijah Campbell should have had an interception on. Ethan Bonner did intercept a pass from Tua to Tyreek Hill. Jalen Wright had an 8-yard run up the middle, which was sprung by a big block by Julian Hill. Tua had a poor throw on a crossing pattern. Jeff Wilson had a beautiful outside run for roughly 20 yards or so, give or take. Mike White hit Malik Washington for 20 yards, and Washington beat Elijah Campbell on the play. Jonathan Harris, we haven't heard his name. We've heard a little bit about Benito Jones, a little bit about Tier Tart. We haven't heard much about Jonathan Harris. Well, today he had a sack on Tua, but wouldn't have counted because they were offsides on the play. Now, Harris wasn't offsides. Someone else on defense was offsides, but he did get a sack on Tua nonetheless. Quentin Bell stopped Jaylen Wright on a run for no gain. Here's a name we almost never hear in these training camp reports and updates and stuff. So sit down, put on your seatbelt, buckle up. Channing Tindall and Grayson Murphy forced Skylar Thompson to hurry a pass that ended up going incomplete. So I'm going to count that as a positive play for Channing Tindall. And I've been doing these training camp rundowns here on the podcast for about 3 years. Probably the first time I've ever said the name Channing Tindall. Yeah, just a very big disappointment there. Jaquan Burton, the wide receiver, dropped a pass from Skylar Thompson. Sirianni Neal had a nice stop on a Chris Brooks play that sort of killed the play and blew it up. So Sirianni Neal was brought in for special teams, we know. But every day in these practice reports, again, practice early August, take it with a grain of salt. He makes a play or two on defense. So makes you go, oh, that's kind of interesting. We'll see where it goes. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to see where it goes. Jalen Ramsey covered Jaylen Waddle very closely, forcing Tua to overthrow a pass. Sirianni Neal was called for holding versus Willie Snead Jr. So that's the flip side of Sirianni Neal. I just give him praise. And he also, when he was covering Willie Snead Jr., Willie Snead the fourth, I should say, not Jr., he was holding him and it was called. A Mike White pass was tipped and intercepted by Patrick McMorris, but would not account it because pass interference was called on the play. So Patrick McMorris makes a play on a tip ball, but there was pass interference on a play, not sure against two, and so the play would have not accounted if it was a game. Mohamed Kamara stopped Jaylen Wright for no game. You know, everyone's talking Quentin Bell. Everyone's talking Chop Robinson. Mohamed Kamara's having a strong first week of camp, kind of flying under the radar. He's going to, until Jalen Phillips come back, he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to play as much as the other two, but he's going to play. Mohamed Kamara is a guy who's just, strung together good day after good day after good day from everything I've heard from people on site. So that's a good thing to see and hear. For a fifth-round pick, if you can get someone who can contribute day one, and by contribute, I mean give you 15 snaps a game, maybe 18 snaps a game. That's awesome. So kudos to Mohamed Kamara. Hopefully he keeps this up here over the next month. Jaylen Wright had a 5-yard run on another play. Mike White overthrew Malik Washington on a deep pass of over 50 yards. Devon Achane dropped a short pass from Tua. Mike White hit Jonnu Smith for about a 20 or so yard completion. Offensive line, again, was a mess today. Offense was a mess. Offensive line was a mess. Patrick Paul and Kendall Lamb both were called for false starts. And Kendall Lamb is going to be the swing tackle here. He's working both some right tackle and left tackle. God forbid something happens to Austin Jackson, who, FYI, I know fans of Dolphins fell in love with Austin Jackson last year, but don't forget, up until last year, this was a guy who was hurt, missed a lot of games, and wasn't playing at a high level. So Lamb is getting some work at right tackle, and then obviously left tackle with Armstead just not practicing much. So there's that. Patrick Paul is just getting work at left tackle. And we know he's a project, so can't be too upset with that. Chop Robinson be chasing Hines on back-to-back drills when they were doing some one-on-one drills, but Austin Jackson did, from what I heard too, he absolutely leveled Chop Robinson, put him on his butt, sort of one of those pancake blocks on another rep. So Austin Jackson did get the best of Chop Robinson on one of the drills when they went head-to-head. Anthony Schwartz had an outstanding catch over the middle over Cater Kuhu. Ethan Bonner was called for pass interference on River Craycraft. Mike White missed Anthony Schwartz on a pass downfield. Jonathan Harris was lined up at edge rusher, but was easily blocked by Chase and Hines. Jonathan Harris, I think, only has 4 starts in his NFL career, not much experience. He's played in like a bunch of games, but only has 4 starts. Not much production. He's one of the litany of people who Miami brought in to replace Christian Wilkins. So we'll see what I don't have high expectation for Jonathan Harris. Miami needs Tier Tart and Benito Jones to step up. Those are the guys they need to really be in a rotation at nose tackle to be outstanding. So we'll keep an eye there. Speak of the devil, Benito Jones and Quentin Bell had a sack against Keon Smith. Braxton Berrios dove for a pass, but he could not come up with it. Tua hit Braylon Sanders on a deep pass where Braylon Sanders was outstanding and really just adjusted to the ball. Tua hit Malik Washington for a 40-yard touchdown. The defense in total was called for offsides over 6 times. Some people, I had one guy on site, but some other people said it was more. but like 8 or 9 times, but it was over 6 for sure. There was actually a personal foul called on a kickoff drill as well. So sloppy practice for the Dolphins on Saturday. It's going to happen in camp when you're practicing every day like this, going up against the same guys. You're going to get in a rut, and every now and then you're going to have a sloppy practice and a bad practice. That was kind of it today. The defense played well, but they committed a ton of penalties, so you got to factor that in. And as long as you don't have 2 or 3 bad practices in a row, you can overlook this stuff. Again, August 2nd, no one should hit the panic button at all by any means, but not one of the better practices for the Dolphins on Friday. So there's that. And again, Saturday's practice, Hard Rock Stadium is not happening. If you plan on going out there and you're listening to this, do not go. It is canceled due to the weather. It's unfortunate because I know some fans actually do make a trip down to South Florida for like a week or a few days and go to a couple practices. Now, one of them's canceled or not open to the public, at least. Stinks, but it is what it is. Everyone have a great Friday night. Everyone have a great Saturday morning. Be sure to check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com, for all the latest on the Miami Dolphins news, podcast, videos, original commentary. We got it all. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Podbean, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. Smash it. And that's it, everyone. Have a good one. We'll talk to you again after a while. And folks, don't forget, we still must put an end to highway profanity.